I want people to know that, is this blocking? Filter? It's okay? That I was, as Kapani said, I was there at that time, at that dinner, and it was a heart-stopping moment, a breathless moment. Time stood still because Swamiji was very definite. It wasn't a casual idea. I mean, after the talk, we sat there and he said, almost at the very beginning, within the first few minutes, he said that, and everyone went, wow, I mean, and he said, I'm going to call them. You know, there was no discussion, there was no thinking about it. He was very definite because he felt, I mean, there were a couple of thousand, maybe 3,000 people there, but it wasn't just the numbers, it was the devotion. And he felt it from all of you, and so you all have created this, you've drawn the blessing, and you've drawn wonderful acharyas, and the other thing I wanted to say about that is that Karpani, really, she's one of the founding members of Chennai. I mean, she will never say, but I mean, we came here at the beginning when nobody was here, and there would be always 3 or 4 traveling acharyas. We'd go all over India, and Swamiji would have us. He didn't travel then. He would be at his house. He'd be writing or various things and having satsangs there. But he would send people out. So we would show up at a certain day, and Swamiji, there'd be a lineup of people, whoever was going out, and he would bless each person. And it was like he was going with you, but he couldn't go. His health was up and down for, as you may know, many years in India. So Karpani would come once a year. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes 4, sometimes twice a year. I mean, she was a part of the staff. It wasn't like a guest coming in, and she'd come, and I'd have a list of things. We're going to go here, we're going to do this, and we just jump into action. So we went to Bangalore, we came to Chennai, we went to Mumbai, we went to Hyderabad, and the very first wave of Ananda going out, and we'd go to set up the halls, the book tables, the altar. We served the tea after the talks. People didn't like the fact that we served the tea, but we served the tea. We did whatever there was, and we met all the wonderful people. We had 200-300 people at level 1s, and then we'd come back and do another round. So we just kept going around, and then at a certain point, it was time for the seed was had been planted, and it began to sprout here, began to sprout in Mumbai. So there have been many people here, but I'd say Karpani is one of the main people who's been coming year after year after year, just cultivating the ground, and it's been a real blessing to have her. I have many stories to tell you about Swamiji, and I'll just go with the flow of what they are. But when we were here in the beginning, it wasn't really an easy time. It was a founding of a new work. He always said we would come to India, we'd do America, we'd go to Europe, we'd go to Australia, we'd come to India. And it was, there was a lot of things going on. Swamiji had television programs, we opened a store, he had satsangs all the time, he had people traveling around, he was writing. There were many things going on. And I was just thinking, he dedicated the last 10 years of his life to India, to founding, getting master's work going in India. So it was a very great blessing what a great teacher to have Swamiji here with us, and to all the books and the music and the people. And so anyway, I'll share some stories that are from now, share some stories that are from before, share some stories from other continents of the times with Swamiji. And each one I have a principle behind it that, as Karpani has, that I hope will help you. I think every story about Swamiji, and when I came back from America last year, I sat down in front of a video camera and I just told story after story after story for a few months, every once a week, and got them down, because I didn't, after Swamiji's passing, I didn't want to, forget them. And but I think as I was doing that, I realized every story was really for everybody. You know, he had a message to get out to people, and it wasn't personal so much. You know, everything he said it could be, you know, a whole lot of people could gain from it. So I hope that's the case for you all too. In the beginning of Ananda village, Swamiji, and this story is about self-will and you making your own choices. He never prohibited people from coming through Ananda. Those of you who are, I mean, people who were in tune came through, but those of you who were at the healing class, I said something about this, but I want to tell the other part of the story, that there were many people who came through Ananda. There were all kinds of healers. There were all kinds of swamis. There was a man who had a lion. The lion was living there for a while, and you know, he was taming the lion. And I mean, you just saw there were people sitting in the temple, and they had pyramids on their heads. You know, and there were all kinds of strange things going on. I mean, people that would come, but he let the people there choose. You know, the people who were living there. You know, I remember one man, he would just stare into your eyes, and you know, I thought that's kind of weird. And then the man with the colors, I told you, he would shine colors into your eyes, and there was a sound lady, and they just went on and on. And so, but two stories from that I remember is, one was a woman came through, and she was a Reiki master, and you know, everybody, I mean, I was brand new on the path. I was in my 20s. I just thought it's all spirituality, and so, you know, I can do anything. So this woman was teaching the hands-on, you know, Reiki, and I'm not putting anything down, I'm just telling you the facts. And, you know, if you do that, maybe it's fine for you. But, so then I learned the first level of the Reiki. I may have even learned the second. I mean, I was just completely into that. And one day Swamiji came to town, and he was staying with us at the ashram. I was living in the ashram. It wasn't like I was a casual visitor. And so we went out for a drive, and there were different people in the car. So I just couldn't wait to get in the car to tell him of what, you know, about this healing that I learned. I learned this healing from this woman. And so I told him, I'll never forget, he was in the front, I was sitting directly behind him, and I said, Swamiji, I just wanted to tell you that I've learned this technique of healing with my hands, and I just feel this energy is flowing out of my hands, and I put my hands on people, and the people I think they're feeling healed, and you know, I went on, and Swamiji, he didn't say much to people. I mean, he just allowed you to make your own choices. So he sat there, and he went like this, and I'm done. What does that mean? And then he said, maybe I should learn Reiki. And I said, you don't need that. I just blurted it out. Now, it took me 15 years to understand that he was saying to me, you don't need that. I ended up dropping it soon after, I think because of his magnetism, but he wouldn't say, don't do that. You should do master's healing techniques. He just allowed you to. And also, I thought a subtle point was, I wasn't that open yet. I was new. I was independent. I didn't want anybody telling me what to do. You know, that was the beginning of Ananda. So even if he had said, I don't think I was ready for it. Now, mind you, the second story, I was ready. I was completely open. I had surrendered my life to God and Guru. I was open to Swamiji as much as I could be, and as I thought I could be. And the second story was about another healer that came through a few years later. And this man had healing cylinders. I told you about this in the healing class. So he had these things you would wear for the airplane, or you put it down there, it's in front of the computer, and you know, and everybody had them. And so I remember the man also could tell you what healing things you needed. So he'd feel your pulse, he'd look in your eyes. I mean, he did all kinds of things. So he told me that, he said, well, you know, and this was like 20 years ago. So he looked at me and he said, well, you know, there's something wrong here. And he said, did you grow up near the ocean? I said, yeah, I grew up in Los Angeles near the ocean. He says, well, that's the thing. You don't have enough of these certain minerals in your system. You're not well. And I thought, yeah, I thought I was well. He said, you're not well. He says, you need to eat fish. And I hadn't eaten fish for 20 years or something. I said, really? He says, yeah, if you don't eat fish, you're going to have problems. So, I said, I got to go buy some fish. So, I didn't even ask Swamiji. I told a couple of friends, and they said, really? Maybe I need fish. So I'm sort of sneaking in the store. I didn't want anybody to see me buying fish in the store because, most people don't know. Some need it, some don't, but I was always sort of robust. I didn't definitely need fish. So I bought the fish for, it was a very uncomfortable feeling for about a week, maybe a week and a half. And then Swamiji comes to our office we had a big open house. So I thought, this is because I felt so uncomfortable, but I didn't ask him. And I should have. So I said, well, he's coming to the office. Now I have a chance to ask him. So he comes in, and my office was, it was small. It was about half the size of this, or something like this, so the prayer room. So I thought, well, I'll just bring Swamiji in quietly and shut the door and ask him. So, because it was an open house, I bring Swamiji in, and there's a whole trail of people. All my best friends, they all come in. We want to see your office too. And I said, oh God. So we're in there, and the door's closed. And so then I'll never forget. Just like Karpani's story, it was definite what he felt about it. So, but here again, I was a completely different person. And I was open, I was receptive, I wanted to hear what he had to say. The other time, I did not want to hear. So this time, I said, I was very nervous, and I said, well, Swamiji, Manfredi, and he had invited the man to the community. I said, Swamiji had this cup of punch, not a soft drink, but some juice. He just had it right up to his mouth. He was about to take a sip. And I'm standing there, and I said, well, Swamiji, he said, the man told me that, I need to eat fish. And Swamiji went, and he said, he's no saint. Why are you listening to him? See the difference? Before he just said, This time he says, he's no saint. Why are you listening to him? You don't need fish. And I said, I didn't think so, but I didn't know what to do. Isn't that something? But anyway, the people who were open, he would guide you. But if you weren't, he said, let you make your own decisions. The next story was, this is a very interesting one. Now, we were in Rome at a certain point, and I lived in Italy and helped to develop the work there, along with many people. So I lived there for 7 years. And Swamiji would come and go, and I'll tell you some stories about the beginning of that if I have time. But this was a very deep story that, I think it was Master through Swamiji who just pulled this out of me. Because we were walking along in Rome at an outdoor marketplace, and there were many people, Africans from, that were living in Rome, or they'd come there. They were trying to make their life in Italy. And so all along the walk, there were different people selling things, and all kinds of people. But I remember we walked by a group of Africans. Not African Americans, Africans. And they were selling all kinds of stuff, and they weren't doing so well. You can tell they were barely in the country. This was in Italy. And so a group of us were walking by with Swamiji. I must have been 29 or 30 years old then. I just was new coming into Italy. And I was embarrassed. You know how you get embarrassed about some things. So I was like, I hope we can just hurry up and walk by. I just didn't want to be there. And Swamiji could feel that, and he knew that was a wrong attitude and something that needed to be pulled out of me. So we just kept walking along, and then we were getting right by this group of these people who were selling things, and one of the things they were selling was sunglasses. So I was like cringing. Let's just hurry up and walk by. I mean, it was some deep thing that needed to be pulled out, and Swamiji could feel it, and he just kept walking, and then he looked at me and he just says, I think I need some sunglasses. And he went over and bought them. And I mean, I just went, he's going over there? Isn't that interesting? He picked up my thought and he just said, I think I need some sunglasses. And it just really helped me to just open up to whatever's happening. Don't cringe and want to be embarrassed and try to pull a bag over your head. Just go with what's happening. And it was a very deep lesson for me. And then one on expansiveness. That when Swamiji would come in, and I'm not going in a particular order, this is just wonderful stories about him. When Swamiji would come to, well, I should give you a little background about a new work, because India is a new work. India is a new work. In Italy, we had a new work there. In 1984, some of us went there to try to start something. And Swamiji had taught there for many years, and in Europe, and so there we were. We were 4 people to start off, and then it got to be more and more. But it was not. There was no internet. Okay, nobody had a laptop. Nobody had a laptop. I mean, unless you knew somebody. I mean, computers were still huge at that time. And cell phone, forget it. SMS, Skype, Facebook, Twitter, all these things. There was nothing. It cost $3 a minute to call America. So nobody ever called anybody. No one ever wrote because the letters never arrived. It took a month for a letter to possibly arrive. And we had a mailbox that's kind of deep, and at the back we had the picture of Master. We'd open it and, hi, Guruji. There was never any mail in there. And then people would come, when people would call up somebody's relative, which was, very rare because it was so expensive. You'd think today, you can get on Skype with somebody, you can call their cell phone, you can get on FaceTime, you can just do everything. We could do nothing. So anytime somebody's relative would call, they would pick up. It was one phone on the wall, that was it. So they would be talking, and then you go, is that your mother? Can I talk with her? Whoever called, you're just sort of, you were grown. I can say we grew up in Italy because, we were just like, young, but I remember what Swamiji said. He said to us when he left us there, he said, because I just didn't know what was going to happen. I said, well, what should we do now? And he said, Dhyana, tune in to Master and Divine Mother, and you will know what to do. And I realized that I wasn't in tune, that I had to energize every day. I had to meditate twice a day. I had to do my kriyas. I had to do Om technique, Hansa. I had to chant. I had to do, I had to read the books. I had to get in tune. And that's what he was saying, that you have to do it yourself. And so I began to do that. All of the things that I needed to. And of course, things got better and better. And Swamiji would call every Monday morning at 7 o'clock. And we'd just be, oh, and you hear the phone, and he'd pick up and he would say, how are you? He was just trying to get your energy going so you could, basically it was a time of growing up. And and then I was going to tell you more about that story. So then Jyotish and Devi, you met them, and we all lived there together. And I remember one time at Christmas time, they had left their son. He went back to America, and they were still in Italy for at least 3 months. They were there without their son. He was like 8 years old. That was a big sacrifice for them. And so I remember someone called from, people rarely called, but it was Christmas time. And then somebody called from the United States and wanted to talk with Davy. So we were in a little room, and everybody else was outside, and it was their Christmas, the first Christmas in Italy for everybody. And we were just so homesick and lonely and sad. And so we were in a little room talking on this one phone with the wire going, from here into there. And So someone had called and they were asking Davy about their son. First it's, how are you doing? And she was fine. And then when they started asking about their son, I said she just started, tears start going on her face, and then she just started crying really loudly. And I said, do you want me to take the phone? She said, yes, please take the phone. I mean, they were so sad. So I started talking to the person. They said, well, what's happening over there? I said, it's fine here. There's no problems here. And they said, well, how's everything? It's just fine. And it's fine. So we're both in there just crying our eyes out. And then after that, because, you never heard from anybody. Then Swamiji called up. How are you? It was like, we're fine. And then different people start calling. But then we had to come out of there and put on the Christmas. For everybody, you had to put yourself aside. And this is where we learn selflessness. You had to put your worries, your fears, your whatever, and just go out and serve Master. And now that center's been there for 30 years. But the founding, the beginning, it takes a lot of energy to get things moving. And anyway, so that was a wonderful start for there. And so then I want to tell you about... that was the backdrop for this, that when Swamiji would come, now I lived there 7 years, so there are different times when he lived many months there, and then he would go back to the U.S. and he would come. But he taught us something about expansion. And when he came, not all the time, but some of the time, and we got maybe $20 a month as a salary. It was some stipend. It was, there was no real salaries to have, but we got something. You could buy some little things. And so then Swamiji would come, and when he would come, he would invite everybody. I want to take everybody. Let's all go out for dinner. And of course you wanted to be with Swamiji, but then you'd think, where is he going to go? Because you only had the $20. You said, where's he going to go? And what was interesting was I always went, and I always was able to go, But some people never went, and they looked so unhappy all the time. Every time he would come, he said, let's go. And then some people would say, okay, I'm going. And other people would say, I don't have enough. I'm not going. And I didn't care if I had enough or not. I'm going to sit at the table there with Swamiji. And because he was teaching us to be open, be expansive, let the energy flow, finances will flow, because he never wanted us to think we just had the $20, because Divine Mother, she has whatever you need. So we would go, and then we'd say, well, Swamiji, we're going to pay for you. You're not paying for me. Yes, we are. So everybody would put their last money to pay for Swamiji, pay for the dinner. You'll just be so happy. And, and then something always worked out where you got the $20 back, or you got $10 or whatever it was. But he was testing, and when I think about it, he was testing us. Do you have faith in God? Are you going to just hold back? And I remember another time he took a group of us to, if some of you are going or have been to Ananda Village at the Cristo Hermitage, there's beautiful paintings by Odierna. You may have seen them in some of the slides or whatever, the videos. So then we were there when he bought like, I don't know how many paintings in one day for the community. It wasn't personal, it was for the community. So there were about, 6 or 8 of us with him. And so we go into the shop, and he was so excited. This is a story of expansion too. He said, everybody, he was always so enthusiastic, everybody should buy a painting. I went, how? It's not possible. And he just went to everyone, look at these paintings, they're so beautiful, you should buy a painting, you should buy a painting. And I said, yeah, I want a painting. And they had huge paintings. They were all sizes paintings. But he didn't let you off the hook. The place was maybe twice as big as this room, as this temple here. But he was just like going around, which painting are you going to get? Which? You couldn't dash out to the coffee shop or anything. And so finally, I don't know what to do. So I tell you, my painting was like, my painting was this size, you know? But you could choose the frame, you know, so I was painting a huge frame. And so Swamiji comes, he goes to every person. I mean, this is a lesson. This wasn't just, you know, fun. He says, what's your painting? And everybody, you know, there's this last money on the painting. He says, what about your painting? I said, he said, that's not a painting. Get a real painting. I said, Swamiji, that's all I can get. He says, I'm going to help everybody get a painting. And see, he just wanted you to go as far as you could go with willingness. It was a test. It wasn't a sort of a fun thing. It was willingness. Are you willing? Then he helped everybody there to get a beautiful painting. So my painting got to be about this big. I started with this. But he wanted you to keep your mind expansive and not think, I can't afford it, I just got to get this. You know, these are good things that Master Divine Mother will help you. If you do the best you can, pray to them and they will help you. So that was a very important lesson. Then there was one time, this is on just, you know, manifestations, I put it, because there were a lot of things that happened around Swamiji that didn't logically make sense. You know, things just appeared, or this just happened, and they're still happening, you know. Many things just happened around him, and this is a mundane thing, but I recall in Rome once, he was about to give a talk at this huge hall in Rome, and somehow everybody else was gone to set the place up. And I was supposed to ride over with him because I lived in Rome for some time for Nanda Sangha, and I knew the way and all that. So he was resting, and we were supposed to leave at, I don't know, 5 o'clock, and the talk was at 6 or whatever time it was. And so my job was to get a taxi for us and to get him to the talk on time. So I called and called, and I spoke Italian, and you know, I tried everybody, and I mean, it was not like here. I mean, a taxi, I mean, in a neighborhood, you had to call to get him to come to your house. It wasn't somebody's driving down the street, or there's a three-wheeler or whatever. You had to get somebody to give them the directions, get them to your house. It was very rare you saw a taxi just in the neighborhood. So I tried everything, and I couldn't get anybody to come, and maybe they just didn't show up, but it got later and later and later, and the program is starting. I'm just starting to sweat. I have one job and I can't even do it. I'm trying to get into the hall, and so I told Swamiji, I just can't get a taxi here. He just didn't even think about it. You know, he just kept meditating or whatever it was, and so I was in there with the phone in the phone book and you know everything, and then I look out the window. And there's a taxi right in front of the house. And I said, there's a taxi. I just couldn't believe it. I ran, I said, wait, stop. Then, I mean, that was like just a neighborhood where you would never see a taxi just driving down the street. And it was going slow enough where I could go outside, and I just flagged him down, like, Swamiji, there's a taxi there. He says, all right. He never said anything more about it. But somehow, Divine Mother provided that. I mean, he had a mission. It wasn't like he was going to a restaurant or something. He was going for a talk. And that taxi just appeared. Well, I never saw it after that. But I never saw it before or after. But I think that was a Divine Mother gift for him. I just have a couple of more. There was... I'll end with these couple. No, I guess there's one more really fun one. Then I'll go to the deeper ones. But when we got our house here in India, in Gurgaon, we have had many houses. But when we got the one before we have now, which was called Guru Prem, a small house for Swamiji. This was the last house he lived in India, really. So that's the whole story, is how we got the house. But then once we got the house, someone offered to, this is a story about non-attachment. Someone offered to completely furnish the place. They had a store, and they wanted to, that was their seva, was to furnish the place. So I had planned to go to the store and, see what there was and come back and tell Swamiji and, everything. And so then I was going to go pick the things out. And so then I SMS'd or called Narayani, who was helping Swamiji, and I told her about this offer and that I was going to go. And she says, well, maybe I should go because I can help you. And I said, okay. Then I said, well, gosh, maybe Swamiji would like to go. So she asked Swamiji, and right away he says, I'm coming too. So we three went with somebody else to this beautiful place. And, just basics though for your house. Couch, drapes, tables, chairs, everything like that. And Swamiji, he really enjoyed it. He went through, he picked out everything. It was all a donation. And so he gets everything. And so we get, the things are delivered. We arrange, we were working like lightning to get Swamiji into the house in 8 days, record time, I think. So in 8 days, from the time I saw the house to the time we moved in was 8 days. So, and all the furniture's there, they moved in the beds and everything. And so, it took a whole lot of effort to do that. And so then finally Swamiji comes, he's coming into the house now. And there were like 20, 30 people fixing it up, painting, getting everything ready, and then all the furniture. And Swamiji comes in. And I remember it was about 9 p.m. that night that we had done all the work. And by then I was just like completely just beat. The other people were completely beat. And I just looked at how beautiful it was. They look at the drapes and the colors of the couch and the pillows and the chairs. And, I just thought it was so beautiful. So he walked in, and he knew I was thinking, it's so beautiful, it took so much work, oh my God, So he walked in, and it took him about 30 seconds. He looked in that room, and then he went over, he says, I think I'll check my email. And he just starts typing. And I thought, doesn't he love this place? Doesn't he? Look at the couch, look at the pillows, look at the colors. He didn't say a word. And I realized, surely he picked everything out himself. With energy, he picked out the colors of the drapes, the paint color, the carpets, he did everything. But he was not attached to one thing in that house. Wow. I was completely attached. I just thought, look how beautiful. How come he can't see this? He just went straight and started working. And then, of course, he said, thank you and whatever, but he didn't have one string of attachment. That's rare. You understand what I'm saying? He could do it, but he could have walked away from it in a moment. And the rest of us were like jumping up and down, And I really learned a lesson there of non-attachment. Do it for God and leave it. Don't have your whole heart and look at the color, look at that color, Or just like this. And he just, I think I'll check my email. He went straight to work. The job was done and he just went to work. Wow. That's not attachment, isn't it? Okay, and then these last two are, about spiritual, one about the Guru's help. I don't think I've told this story, but in the early years of Ananda, India, when I came over, as I said, it wasn't that easy of a time. And personally, I wasn't having that easy of a time either, adjusting and everything. And so I remember one day I was with Swamiji, and it was just, nobody else was there, and it was a personal conversation with him. Thank God. There was like a little window of time. And I said, Swamiji, I'm really having a hard time. And I'm meditating, I'm doing more Kriya, I'm chanting, I'm serving. I'm going around teaching, I'm reading, I'm doing affirmations, I said, I don't know what else I can do. And I said, there's no change that seems to be happening. And you will find this in your life at different times. You're doing everything outwardly, but there doesn't seem to be any change. I said, Swamiji, there's no change. I don't know what else to do. And he said very quietly, it will change. And that's all he said. And I went home that night and I thought, how? I mean, what else could I do what else could I do? You see where I was coming from? And I went to bed, and the very next morning, something had changed. Major. I just felt some huge karmic block just falling off. And I went to Swamiji. I said, Swamiji, I just feel completely different today. I said, I don't know what happened, but just something happened. He just said, that's good. And what had happened was I did all I could do, but then the Guru's grace came. And whenever I tried to thank him over all the years, I'd say, Swamiji, thank you. And he would say, Dhyana, Master's helping you. Remember that. He's helping you. And I think that's the same for all of us. We remember Master's helping us. And one time, in that same time, it was, I was going back to the U.S. from India, and it was a transitional time in my life, and I went to say goodbye to Swamiji and get his blessing, and I hadn't been in India for just a few months, and so he said, well, now tell me where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, and what's going to, when you're coming back. And so I started telling him all these things, and then I just broke down. And he said, well, what's the matter? And I said, well, Swamiji, it's just going to be hard. And he said, you know what I loved? He never was, oh, you poor thing, let me help you, what can I do? And he was always in the spine. And he said, Dhyana, and just look like this. Look what it takes to find God. And I thought, I can't do it. I was just saying, maybe it takes that. I'm not going to be able to do it. And then he added on to that, look what I've had to go through. And I just thought, that's impossible. And he said, you will be fine. But had he gone the other way, you'll never pull up from there. He didn't. He went up. He didn't go down. Look what it takes to find God. Look what I've had to go through. And you go with my blessing and Master's blessing. And the last part of this story, I'll tell you, it's so sweet that when I was there in the U.S., it was a roller coaster ride. And everybody goes through times that are topsy-turvy. And I just was, somebody had called me from India. So I was in America, and I was at Ananda Village. And it was either Leela or someone. And so they were saying, how's it going? I said, I don't know, it's not going so well. And so we were going like that. And then they said, Swamiji just walked in the room. I said, don't get on the phone. Don't get on the phone. Please don't get. Because, you didn't want to talk to him if you were down. And suddenly, he's on the phone. And, wow, that was the longest conversation I ever had with Swamiji. You know why? Because he waited until my energy went up to get off of the phone. And he said, well, how are you? And and then he says, well, what's the weather like over there? I said, it looks good. I didn't know what to say. Then he has to say, next one, what are you doing there in America? Well, I'm reading your books, Swamiji. He said, which books? He just kept going. I said, well, I'm reading this one. And he says, what do you like about it? What's your favorite story? He just kept going, and my energy was going like, each thing, he was just pulling me up. And he said, now, where else are you going to go? Who are you going to see? Where are you going? He just kept going. And then at a certain point, it was at least 15 minutes with question and answer. It was a question and answer session, but each time my energy kept going up. And then when he felt, okay, she's all right, he says, all right, bye-bye. And that was the end. But I was completely lifted up by that. Isn't it amazing? So I think I'll close by saying his energy is still very much around. I've heard from so many people, they had a dream of Swamiji, they felt his guidance, they felt his direction. And, in your own meditations, just inwardly asking. Every day I listen to one of his talks. If you can get those talks, if you can't get the talks, read something every day, because you'll feel Swamiji near, Master near, those who think me near, I'll be near. And there's always something that's just for you in that talk. No? In that passage, there's always some answer to something that you particularly need. And so if we do all the things that we know, that will bring that presence. It's still there. He's still very much guiding all of us. And I consider it one of the greatest blessings of my life to have studied and lived with such a great master. And he's still living and with us and helping and guiding us all now. God bless you all.